Hi, everyone. Welcome to week 3. This video is going to go over part 1.3 of our real estate market valuation project. This project, we are going to be submitting some slides. Do you remember from part 1.1, we had a slide presentation? A slide presentation is essentially a PowerPoint. So if you're not familiar with Google Slides, think of it as a PowerPoint. This is the file that you should have downloaded, saved, and submitted in part 1.1. We are going to submit all the way through slide 17. So you can leave the prompts in 18 through 25. So these slides, if you'll notice, it tells you exactly what to create and exactly what to explain. And you're going to copy your graphs, your box plots, your histograms, your pie charts, wherever it asks you. It's going to tell you what to do, and you're going to submit those. It also requests that you submit your Google Sheets, which is the same as an Excel spreadsheet, which is what we've been working on in the class. You do not have to submit the sheets if you submit your slides. The slides will have all the information I need that you've submitted over. Please do not just submit your sheets. Sometimes students will do that thinking, hey, I don't want to deal with these slides. Please wait, submit your slides, and then submit the assignment. The sheets, you can't earn any interpretation points if you just submit your sheets, even if it's complete. So make sure you do go ahead and complete this part of the presentation. This assignment is the biggest assignment that you'll have in the class. So please start working early. So if you're starting this on Saturday, you may have to spend a lot of time. However, if you start this on Monday, you'll have plenty of days, do a little each day, and then you'll get to the end. What I'm going to go through with you is how to complete the sheets part, which is this part right here. We are going to do the data analysis in Sheets. And once we do the data analysis in Sheets, you're going to be able to move that over to the slides and explain. And I'll go over a little of the explaining. I'm going to require that you do a little reading from the textbook, thinking of your My Open Math, to do some of that on your own, but I will do a lot of it with you. That way you're fully set and ready to go by following this video. So let's dig into the video and start with number 1 on the assignment. Number 1 details type, which records the property type. Remember, we had towns, townhomes, homes, and units. Type is going to be a category. So we could think of a categorical variable as something like names of cities, names of states. It's kind of hard to quantify those, but we could look at differences in them for sure. And so we're going to use a pie chart to model this data. So we're going to copy the type column from our random sample in tab 2, paste it into tab 6, and create our first pie chart. So let's go over to tab 2. You will have to arrow over to scroll to tab 2. Remember the sample that we created previous in week 2? We're going to be using it now. So our data in column 2, we're going to copy and paste that. So you'll just highlight, right click, copy, or highlight, Control C, this type from column 2. And now we're going to go over to tab 6 and we're going to paste that in column A. And then we're going to insert. I've already inserted it here. We're going to insert chart. And it's going to give us this pie chart right here. If you'll notice, I have 86% are homes in mine. You're going to have a different amount than that just because it's a random sample. So you'll be able to see, hey, how many of my real estate properties are homes versus townhomes? And so you can very easily look at the data right here. And then you're going to copy and paste this pie chart over here into, it'll look right here, include your pie chart. And so this is going to be the first graph that you put in. So after you do your introduction with some of your information, this will be where you copy and paste your pie chart to. And so you can change your labels if you ever want to under the customize. If you wanted to change your titles, the way that it looks, you can always use this customize. Feel free to play with it. It's up to you. Here's the chart title. It says count. You could do real estate, pie chart, And then you could do homes, town, homes, and units if you wanted to be specific. And see how that has a lot of information on there. Very easy to read, easy to understand. This way, if you lose this graph for some reason and you see it later, you're like, what is that? You know that that's what this graph is showing you. Now for the pie chart, it's not a big deal. We only do one pie chart. It'll be kind of hard to lose. Next, we're going to start making box plots and histograms, and there are a number of these. So I would love it if you would add those labels because it will help you in the future. So we have completed number one. So we're moving on to number two. Price has two different parts. We're going to do part one first. So I'm going to highlight it here, and then we're going to go over it. So first, we're going to create a histogram. So we're going to consider property prices from our random sample. So we're going to copy and paste the price column from tab 2 into tab 7. And then it's going to give our measures of central tendency. That would be mean, median, mode. It's going to talk about the spread. It's going to give us a lot of information. And then we're going to select or create a histogram by selecting insert and then pressing chart. And then that histogram is going to be fully set up. Sometimes, for whatever reason, you may get a line chart or you may get something else rather than a histogram. That has to do with how the template is reacting in your specific computer. So I'll show you what to do if, for instance, that happens. So that way you can go in and change that. But it's typically going to just show you a histogram, but just in case, every once in a while I get a student that asks this question. So I want to make sure you know how to do that. So we're going to create a histogram, and then we're going to change our bucket size. So let's go over here. And so we're going to go back, arrow over to tab 2. This time we're going to select those prices. So we're going to select all 300 prices. We're going to move to tab 8. We're going to paste those in. See how I just pasted them in? Obviously, I didn't need to show you how to copy and paste. I think you know that. And then you'll insert a chart. And it's going to be a histogram. I had already inserted it for you. And then you can customize your histogram and you can change your bucket size. It says to change it to $100,000. That will give you $100,000 in home price. So that way you can see what your histogram looks like. Obviously, same as before, your histogram is going to look different than mine because it is, you know, your sample. So I'm going to write here, random sample histogram for pricing. That way you know, hey, this is what this histogram is. I didn't know that, and now I do. Now that we have this, we can go create a box plot. So if you click on cell F2, you're going to get a link here. And you can copy and paste this link into an open tab. And this looks like a nice calculator. Anytime you're doing something in statistics, you are going to find calculators like this on the internet. They are super helpful and they make things easier. I love these calculators. So first, we're going to change the data into a sample from a population. And we're going to go and we're going to select all of this pricing data. You know, obviously, once again, copying. I understand you know how to do this. And then Control V to paste it. See all this data. It says enter comma separated data. I don't actually do that. You don't have to do that if you're separating them by line. And then you'll click submit, and it's going to give you a box plot. You can take a screenshot of this and put this into your slide. So this is going to be your first box plot, and you'll want to make sure you note where you submit it that yes, this is the random sample of prices. So we have done this first part of the assignment. Obviously, it says here you can change your chart axis titles if you'd like. I recommend that. And then here is the box plot part that we just did. It's going to give you a lot of data. I recommend just going and copying all this data in here because that way you have the median, you have, you know, your interquartile range. You have all of the things that you're going to need when it asks you questions in those slides. So I recommend starting out that way. So we're going back to the assignment. Now that we've finished the histogram and box plot, you're going to look at all the different prices separately. So we're going to copy the pricing data for homes from tab 3 and move it over to tab 8. So here we go. Once again, scroll back over tab 3. This is our home prices. I'm going to select it and then I'm going to copy it over. So right click, copy, and then it asks you to go over home price only. Paste it right there. And then we're going to create another histogram. So insert chart, and we have a histogram. And then you can go over here and you can customize it however you wish. You could add a chart title, histogram home price, things like that. That way you know exactly what you're doing. So it looks like you're going to do that for your townhomes and your units as well. So we have the histogram for the home price. Note again, you can always go to F2, click on the link, and do another box plot. You can have box plots for all of these if you would like to create those. It's just like before. Let's do it as an example. Again, we're going to go back to our box plot. We're going to go to reset because we already used it. And so here we have it still saved as sample. This time we're just going to do this column A right here, which is just our home price data. So we're going to go back to box plot, Control V to paste it in, scroll up so you see all your data. Submit data. It does take maybe a couple seconds for my computer to create that box plot. Maybe it's moving a little slow today, I'm not sure, but you can see all of this information. It has a lot of helpful stuff that can be beneficial to you. You can click the little, it had different links there, and you can find the means if you'd like, things like that. So now that we have finished houses, we're going to do the same thing with townhomes and units. So go over to tab 4. We're going to select our townhome data. In my specific sample, I had very few townhomes. So you may have very few townhomes. And then this is where you just paste it in, Control V, and then you're going to insert a chart, and it's going to give you another histogram. And so you're going to do that for all of these all the way across. So next we're going to go to units. We're going to select the unit prices. Looks like I have a few more units in my sample. So we're going to go over to tab 10. And we're going to paste that in. Control V. We pasted all of our units in, and then we'll go to insert and then chart. And look at what it gave me. It gave me a line chart. So I can change this out right here, go to setup and click histogram, and then I have the histogram. So you can see how this happens sometimes. I'm not sure why that is, but every once in a while I get one show up. It usually shows up as a line graph on mine, but we do only want the histograms. And so I would go in and change this title, histogram unit prices. That way I know exactly what we're looking at here. You can go back in. It says to create a box plot now for each one, just like we did before. And so let's do this. Another example. So we're going to copy paste this link. It's the same one here, copy paste it. And then we can do a box plot for our units. So Control C, reset. Put in the data. Yep, it looks right. It says sample over here. Make sure we don't do population. And then submit, and we have our new box plot. Looks like we have one outlier up here. But we're going to be able to use that then in your slide presentation. It'll show you specifically where to put that, so I won't go over that with you. But it looks like we have now completed moving all of the tab 3, 4, and 5 data into tabs 8, 9, and 10, respectively for homes, townhomes, and units. So now we are going to talk about the strengths and weaknesses of using a histogram versus a box plot. When do you use a histogram? When do you use a box plot? And then you're going to compare the data, looking at similarities and differences. Why might it be important to look at prices based on type instead of looking at all property prices lumped together? So let's go through the first part. Where specified in your Google Slides file, comment on strengths and weaknesses of using a histogram versus a box plot. So I pulled this up for you. This is, why would you use a histogram? Why would you use a box plot? What you'll notice if you ever read peer-reviewed literature, almost all the time, they use box plots. They don't use histograms. You can compare a lot of data sets with a box plot really close together. It's easy to see what's going on. And I think it's a small amount of space. And that's why they use those box plots versus the histograms. So I recommend looking, you can Google for this. You can look in the classroom textbook. I recommend doing both, so that way you read it several different ways. And so that's why I provided this. This is just one example. You would never need to pick this specific example. They're all going to say the same thing. Both are going to show you central tendency, variation, gaps, outliers. They're all going to do that. They're both pretty effective. You can see the probability distribution. Although histograms are better in displaying the distribution of data, box plot indicates whether the distribution is symmetrical or skewed. In symmetrical, the mean and median values are nearly the same, and the two whiskers are almost the same length. And so that's pretty helpful. They're both valuable for assessing the impact of improvement initiatives. Obviously not something we're looking at this class, but something you may want to think about if you use it in the future. And they are both ideal for presenting moderate to large data sets. So lots of use for it. Histograms are better in determining underlying distribution of the data. Box plots allow the comparison of multiple data sets, less detailed, less space. So that would be where I would talk about their differences. Those would be good differences. This is just an example. If you go to a different website, look at different information in the book, you may find a little bit more. So this is just one example. So let's go back over. For what situations might a histogram be appropriate? For what situations might a box plot be appropriate? I would use something like this right here where you might use it. Peer-reviewed literature would obviously use that box plot. So that's what I would make sure to note there. Compare the data from the three property types, identifying similarities and differences. It's really important to look at property prices based on type. Because even if you look at bedrooms, a house with 8 bedrooms is obviously going to have a different price point than a house with 1 bedrooms. And that's what they're trying to say here. Townhomes, typically, you have less space of your own, you share a wall, there's just less freedom there. They typically have lower prices in most cities. So that's why if you're looking at home prices and you see a townhome price that's quite a bit lower, you may say, hey, why is this house price so much higher? Well, you're looking at a single family unit, and that single family unit typically runs higher. So you don't want to be comparing apples against oranges. So I'd write something about that. For what specific situations might descriptive statistics be helpful in representing property prices? So it's good to say how much prices are going up or down. I know that you've seen a lot on the news, and that would be a good reference. If you want to think about COVID, you could talk about COVID would be a wonderful situation in why we would talk about property prices. Anytime there's inflation of anything, whether that be eggs or homes, we like to use descriptive statistics to kind of show the magnitude of that. Is the magnitude just really large, or is it not? Are prices increasing moderately or maybe less moderately? So think about those different possibilities. I would recommend, also looking up different sources. I'm not going to give you, everything you're going to need to put here. I'm going to give you some ideas though. One thing I want you to know, students get this wrong a lot. And so I want to talk about skew. If you have a positively skewed distribution, it's going to look like this. We talk about it in the class as more of a right skew. And so that basically means that the tail on the right side is longer than the left. So a lot of times students say, hey, this is left skewed because there's a lot of data over here. Well, no, we're looking at the tail. And so this is a right skew. So right and positive go together, negative and left. So this is a left skew. You also may have bimodal. We don't really have that much in this class, but you may see that. So that's something to consider as you're describing the data in your histogram in your slides. So if you're describing your box plot, similarly, this is left skewed, obviously on the right side, and right skewed on the left side, and no skew. You may see a no skew depending on what your data looks like. So these are things to consider as you're writing up your information in your slides. You will want to talk about skew in that discussion. So I thought I would go over it just a bit before we move on. Okay, next we're going to look at distance. We are going to consider the distance from tab 2 to tab 11. So let's go back over. We're going to use our arrows to scroll over to tab 2, and we're going to look at distance. So we have 100 of these little distance samples. So we're going to copy those. We're going to go over to tab 11, distance, paste those there. And then you're going to create a histogram just like this one. Once again, you know, I always recommend you do histogram distance, random sample, or something like that. That doesn't make a lot of sense now, does it? Let's put that in parentheses so that makes more sense, that we're just talking about the entire sample rather than just homes or townhomes or units. So that might be what your histogram looks like for the distance. It looks like they want to change the bucket size for this to 11. So let's go back over and let's change that histogram bucket size to 1. Looks like I may have already done that, but let's change it to 2 so you can see it at 2, and then let's change it back to 1. So that way you have an idea of what it might look like with a bucket size of 1. Obviously, once again, this is my random sample, not yours. It says you will also create a box plot of these distances. So we're going to use that link in tab 11 to go in and create a box plot for this. And then we're going to select sample and then paste the data. Okay, so we have our link again, cell F2. We're going to copy that, put it over here. I already have it open, but we'll restart and then we'll reset, add our new data in. It's set at sample. So go back, go back to tab 11. And then we're going to make sure when you're copying these into the different ones, like I know in tab 2, we have all of our, it tells us what is in each column. Don't copy and paste those over to your other spreadsheets. We want to make sure we're just copy and pasting over this data. So make sure you don't do that. So copy that in, see how they're all in a row, click submit, and then this would be your box plot. We don't have any outliers for this specific one. And so that's kind of interesting to take a look at. And then we can go over. It looks like that is all of the actual analysis for this assignment. Once again, make sure to submit slides 2 through 17. Slides 18 through 25, leave blank. You're going to add next week 18 through 25, and then you're going to submit this entire presentation for a final grade. So not only will this be graded once, it'll be graded multiple times. So you want to do this correctly because you get double the points for it. So make sure you get all of the slides completed before you submit. Sometimes students have a tendency, oh, I'll just put my graphs in here and I'm not going to explain what it says. And so you don't want to do that. You want to make sure you explain everything where it says to explain, because you want to get the interpretation points, which are about 50% of the total points. So make sure to do that. And if you have any questions as you're going, please let me know. I hope you have a great week.